Okay, so the EOC is Monday and Tuesday, and I gather that some of you are still a little bit stressed out about the constructed response. What I want you to keep in mind as you're preparing for the constructed response is that we have talked about all different manner of literary terms. We've talked about how to write a thesis statement, a topic sentence, how to organize your essays, so you are prepared. If you'll recall, a lot of the practice prompts that you were given allowed you to choose your own specific literary elements to analyze a passage. With that in mind, I wanted to make this quick video just to remind you of some of the more common literary terms, techniques, devices, that sort of thing that we've discussed this year. Now, of course, in pre-AP, we spend a lot of time on diction, and we talk a lot about syntax. So those are a couple of standbys that you can fall back on pretty easily. Remember, though, the diction is not just saying he used this word, and this word. You're going to need to give specific examples of why one phrase is used over another phrase. And with syntax, you're talking about specific sentence structure choices that the author made. A couple of other terms that you might want to throw out. These are just the basic, most common ones that we've discussed this year. You have alliteration, and of course that's repetition of a sound. Assonance and consonants are terms that are slightly less common, but if you remember those, you're more than welcome to use them, particularly if you're discussing poetry. The term allusion notebook, anyone? Allusion, of course, is a reference to something outside of the work of literature. Usually it's going to be a reference to mythology, other existing literature, maybe to a movie, common culture, that sort of thing. Next, we have the archetype. If you'll recall, we spent a lot of time in class talking about archetypes. If you go to the blog, you can view the poster that is on the classroom wall, currently covered up. Next, you have characterization. Don't forget to talk about characterization. That's an easy one that you can always talk about. Are the characters direct characterization? Is it indirect? How does that come about? How are those characters portrayed? So that's an easy thing to discuss. With conflict, obviously you can talk about conflict pretty easily. Also, don't forget, if you're talking about contrast, there are all different types of terms with contrast that you can use, like oxymoron, paradox, juxtaposition, antithesis, that sort of thing. Connotation, denotation, another obvious one that you can pick up to discuss. We've talked about this one in class all the time. It is cold in here, so it is cool. That's a temperature term versus it's really cool for you to do well on your test and not flunk it. That would be great. Next is flashback. It's one that a lot of people often forget, and I'm not really sure why. Flashback's an easy one. If in fact your author has used it. Foreshadowing, another one that people often forget about. Think about the times that you've been watching a scary movie and you hear that music in the background. Da-dum, da-dum, da-da-da-da. Well, gee, what's about to happen? That's foreshadowing. So that one's an easy one people sometimes forget. Hyperbole, exaggeration. I'm so hungry I could eat a horse. I'm so tired I might fall over in the floor. I'm exaggerating. Next, we have imagery. Don't forget that imagery is not just visual imagery. A lot of times you guys do that. Imagery also refers to, well, really all of the five senses. So is something described that you can literally hear it in your head. If they describe food, can you almost taste it? So, you know, stick to not just visual images. Next, we have rhyme. It's an obvious one that sometimes people just completely forget about when they get stressed. Comparison terms, metaphor, conceit, simile, words like that. Those are easy to throw around. You've known them since you were a small child. A motif. Motifs, if you have forgotten, are things that recur throughout your passage, your novel, that sort of thing. Like, for example, in The Count of Monte Cristo, that red silk purse just kept coming back up over and over again. They kept talking about suicide. They kept talking about politics and things like that. So those are motifs. Personification, it's an easy one. If it exists, you can talk about that one. Point of view. I think one of the practice EOC questions that we had, you had to contrast two particular works. So if you do that, look for, is one written in first person point of view, is one written in third person point of view. Maybe it's omniscient and the author knows the insights of all the different characters. So don't forget about point of view. Another obvious one that you sometimes forget is setting. That's an easy one that you should pick up on right away. Don't just say, it is set in a house in the country. Okay, why? Why in the country? Why not in New York City or Los Angeles or Madisonville? What's the purpose of this setting? Symbolism, that's a gimme. If you see symbolism, you need to talk about it. Next, we've got theme. A lot of the pre-AP questions that we practiced have asked you to consider the meaning of the work as a whole, which is basically the theme. So if you get an opportunity to talk about that, do. Also consider discussing the author's tone, style, or mood. That's something on your major works data sheet that a lot of you seem to have problems with. And you'd write something like, the author's style is a love story. No. What I'm looking for when I'm looking for the author's tone is the author serious? Is the author lighthearted? Are they sarcastic? Do they use a lot of humor to convey what it is that they want to say to the audience? So those are just a few of the common literary terms, elements, devices, that sort of thing that we have discussed this year. You might want to review the literary terms glossary that I gave you. Just to kind of get a little refresher if there are some other terms that you'd like to throw out and impress your readers. Otherwise, I will see you Monday morning, first thing, and I'm sure you will do fine.